Hello. The goal of today's lesson is to calculate missing angles using angle relationships. And what we should really are going to concentrate on today is the algebra component. So by the end of the day, we'll be able to solve for x and find all the missing angles in this particular situation. Now, if I have something like this, and I have angles A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. The corresponding angles are the angles that correspond up here and down from the top to the bottom. So let's say A and E will be corresponding angles. Same with B and F, C and G, D and H. Alternate interior is on the inside, so the alternate interiors would be C and F and D and E. I'll just do one of each group. Consecutive interior are the two in a row, so let's say D and F. Sometimes they're called same side interior. They're on the inside and they're on the same side. Alternate exterior, we go from A to H because these are the exterior and we alternate, so from A to H. Vertical angles, there's lots of vertical angles. They just have to be across from each other. Let's choose C and B. Finally, linear pair are two next to each other. For instance, like B and D. So what we're going to be doing is using algebra to find these angles. Now, this angle, it doesn't really make sense for it to be any other angle except for right there, and same with this one right there. Sometimes it's difficult for people to see which angle this thing represents, but there's no other angle that this could be associated with. All right, now what is the relationship between those angles? The first thing we want to do is identify. Are they equal to each other or do they sum up to 180? These are alternate interior, so they should be equal to each other. So once we know that, now we set up the equation. 2x minus 15 is going to equal x plus 55. Now, we just subtract x from both sides, leaving us x minus 15 equals 55. And now we'll add 15 to both sides to give us x equals 70. Chose a nice purple for that. That was an accident. I was going for the black. Oh well. So if this is 70. 70 plus 55 is 125. So we could fill in all of these other angles based off of this. So this would be 55, 55, and we can figure out the same things up here. All right, now let's move on to the next problem. Now this one, we could already find all the angles. In this one, our goal is to find out what x equals. So the first thing we do is find out what the relationship between these angles is. The relationship is alternate exterior angles, which are equal. So x minus 10 is equal to 104. Now we just add 10 to both sides, and x is 114, and we are finished with that problem. Now this one, we know 60, and we know 4y plus 4. These ones are a linear pair of angles, so these two add up to 180. So I can say 60 plus 4y plus 4 is equal to 180. And if I can add 60 and 4 to get 64. And now I'll subtract from 180. And so this would be 116. Now when I divide on both sides, that would be 29. So we know y is 29. If I want to find x, these two angles are alternate interior so that we can set them equal to each other. So 3x minus 3 is equal to 60. Add 3 on both sides and divide by 3, and now I have 21. So x equals 21, y equals 29, and I'm done. Now if we wanted to find the angles, I wouldn't plug them in because I know 60. So you know that's 60 and 120 and 120, 120. Ooh, that's not 120. That's 60. Going too fast. But 60, 60, and those two are 120s. All right, now this one's the trickiest one. This one, we have the x's that we can put equal to each other because they're alternate interior. So I'll say 8x minus 10 is equal to 7x. Subtract 8x on both sides, and we have negative x equals 10. And solve for x, so x is 10, so instead of this being 7, that would be 70. This would be 80 minus 10, which is 70. So now all of these are 110. So since this one is equal to 110, and it's also equal to 6y minus 20, we could say 6y plus 20 is equal to 110. Subtract 20 on both sides, and 6y is equal to 90. And so that goes in 15 times. And now I have my y and my x, and I'm finished with this problem. All right. Now the next thing we're dealing with is parallel and transversal proofs. Now, we know angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. We're starting out with that. And so our goal here is we're going to prove that the alternate exterior angles are, if they're congruent, then the lines have to be parallel. So what we have is we start with our given, and then we have to think, why would angle 2 and angle 3 be congruent? Well, that's the vertical angles theorem, which we learned in the last chapter. And now if I know these two, angle 1 is congruent to 2 and 2 is congruent to 3, then 1 and 3 have to be congruent because that's a transit property. Finally, we want to prove what we want to prove, that L is parallel to M. And why is this true? Well, if corresponding angles are congruent, then the lines have to be parallel. So if corresponding uh, angles are congruent, um, the lines are parallel. All right, hopefully that's got you through this. There's something to do with a partner, but that's an in-class activity. All right, and here's your homework. Good luck.